The hospital room was quiet, but it did not feel peaceful. Machines made soft sounds, lights hummed above. The air smelled clean and cold. Evelyn lay flat on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her body felt heavy, like it did not belong to her anymore. Her arms ached, her legs trembled, her back burned with pain. A nurse gently placed a newborn baby in her arms. The baby cried, loud, sharp, alive. Evelyn gasped as tears filled her eyes. She pulled the baby closer to her chest. His skin was warm, his face was red. His tiny mouth opened and closed as he searched for comfort. She smiled through her tears. "My baby," she whispered. The baby slowly calmed. His breathing softened, his small fingers wrapped around her thumb. That small touch made her heart feel full and fragile at the same time. She had never felt love like this before. Evelyn turned her head toward the window. "Rick," she said quietly, "come look at him." Her husband, Richard, stood near the glass. His back faced her. He stared down at the cars below. His hands were tight on the window frame. He wore a dark blue suit that fit him perfectly. His shoes were polished. He looked ready for work, not ready to be a father. Evelyn waited. Richard did not move. Her smile slowly faded. The door opened. The sound echoed in the room. High heels clicked against the floor. Slow, firm, confident, Evelyn's chest tightened. She knew that sound. Beatrice Thornton walked into the room. Richard's mother looked calm and controlled. Her cream suit had no wrinkles. Her hair was perfect. Her pearls rested neatly around her neck. She looked like she belonged in a boardroom, not a hospital room. She did not look at the baby. She did not smile. She walked straight to the foot of the bed and stopped. "Sign this," Beatrice said coldly. She dropped a thick envelope onto Evelyn's legs. The weight surprised her. Evelyn flinched. "Beatrice," Evelyn said softly, "I didn't know you were coming." Beatrice crossed her arms. "I am not here to visit." What? Evelyn looked at Richard. "Rick." Richard checked his watch. Evelyn's heart sank. She picked up the envelope with shaking hands. It felt heavy and serious. She opened it carefully, making sure not to wake her baby. The papers inside were stiff and official. Her eyes moved to the first page, divorce papers. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she whispered, "this must be a mistake." She looked at Richard. "We just had a baby." What? Richard finally turned around. His face looked pale. His eyes avoided hers. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "This is for the best." "For the best," Evelyn repeated, her voice cracked. "You held my hand all night. You told me you loved me." What? "That was emotion," Beatrice said sharply, "not reality." Evelyn stared at her in shock. "You cannot be serious," Evelyn said. Beatrice's lips tightened. This marriage was never meant to last. Evelyn felt something snap inside her chest. "I supported your son," Evelyn said. "I helped him every day. I worked, I cooked, I planned his schedule." "And you were given a roof and clothes," Beatrice replied. "That was payment enough." Evelyn looked down at her babies. He slept peacefully, unaware of the cruelty around him. "This is his child," Evelyn said firmly, "your grandson." Beatrice waved her hand. "That has not been confirmed." Evelyn's grip tightened on the blanket. "What happens if I refuse to sign?" Evelyn asked quietly. Beatrice leaned forward. "Then we destroy you." Richard stayed silent. "We will say you are unstable," Beatrice continued. "We will take the child." Tears burned Evelyn's eyes, but she refused to cry. She looked at Richard again. "Please look at your son." For 1 second, Richard's face softened. Then he looked at his mother. His shoulders dropped. "Just sign," he said, "please." That was the moment Evelyn understood. She took a deep breath. She smelled her baby's skin. She kissed his tiny forehead. "Give me the pen," she said calmly. Beatrice smiled and pulled out a gold pen. Evelyn signed her name without shaking. She handed the papers back. "Now leave." What? Beatrice reached toward the baby. "Do not touch him," Evelyn said sharply, "or I scream." Beatrice stepped back. "Enjoy your time, it won't last." They walked out. The door closed. The room felt empty and cold. Evelyn stared at the wall for 10 full seconds. Then she moved carefully. She shifted her baby to one arm and reached into her bag. She ignored the cheap phone on the table. She pulled out a sleek black phone hidden deep inside. She pressed one number. "It's time," Evelyn said quietly. Outside, rain began to fall harder, and far beyond the hospital walls, something powerful had just been awakened. The hospital hallway felt longer than before. The lights were too bright, the floor was too cold. Evelyn walked slowly, holding her baby close to her chest. Every step sent pain through her body, but she did not stop. She refused to look weak. Her back was straight. Her face was calm. 2 security guards followed her. They looked uncomfortable. One of them kept clearing his throat. "Ma'am," one guard said softly, "we were told to escort you out." "I'm walking," Evelyn replied. "You don't need to touch me." She passed nurses who whispered behind their hands. Some looked curious, some looked judgmental. One nurse avoided her eyes completely. Beatrice had already spread her story. Evelyn could feel it. She reached the exit door. Cold air rushed in as the doors opened. Rain poured from the sky. The sound was loud and heavy. There was no cover, no bench, no taxi waiting. Evelyn stepped just outside the doorway and stopped. She held the baby tighter and adjusted the thin blanket around him. Her hands were steady. Across the parking lot, a silver car pulled away fast. Water splashed onto the pavement. Richard did not look back. Evelyn watched the car disappear. "That's it," she whispered. She stood there in the rain. Her clothes grew damp, her hair stuck to her face. The baby shifted slightly but stayed asleep. Then she heard it, a deep, smooth engine sound, slow, powerful, controlled. A black car appeared through the rain. It moved like it owned the road. It stopped directly in front of her. The door opened smoothly. A tall man stepped out, holding a large black umbrella. He wore a dark suit that fit perfectly. His shoes shined even in the rain. He walked toward her and stopped. "Evelyn," he said with respect, "I'm here." She exhaled for the first time since the papers were signed. "Thank you," she replied. He opened the umbrella above her and the baby. Then he opened the car door. The inside looked warm and bright, soft seats, clean air, silence. Evelyn stepped inside carefully. The door closed, the rain disappeared, the car moved forward. She leaned back and finally allowed her shoulders to relax. "Are you okay?" the man asked. "Yes," Evelyn said, "but we are done hiding." He nodded. "I already started." She looked down at her sleeping baby. "They think I'm weak." "What?" "They are wrong," the man said calmly. The car drove through the city, lights reflected off wet roads. The world outside looked distant and small. "Where to?" he asked. "A hotel," Evelyn replied, "for tonight." He nodded again. Inside the hotel suite, everything felt unreal. The space was large, the lights were soft, the bed looked untouched. A woman arrived to help with the baby, gentle hands, quiet voice. She smiled kindly at Evelyn. "You should rest," the woman said. Evelyn nodded but did not sit down. She stood by the window and looked out at the city. "I trusted them," she said quietly. "You trusted love," the man replied. "That was my mistake," she answered. He placed a tablet on the table. "You should see this." She walked over and picked it up. Lines of numbers filled the screen, charts, reports, names. She scrolled slowly. "They are drowning," she said. "Yes," he replied. "Their business is hanging by a thread." She stopped scrolling. "Who controls the funding?" He paused, then smiled. "You do." Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. "Then stop it," she said. "It's already paused," he answered. She opened her eyes. There was no anger in them now, only focus. "Good," she said. Later that night in a large dining room across the city, Beatrice raised her glass. "To smart choices," she said. Richard forced a smile. A woman sat beside him, laughing loudly. She showed off a ring on her finger. Richard's phone stayed silent on the table. Beatrice's phone buzzed. She frowned and picked it up. Her smile faded. "What is it?" Richard asked. Beatrice read the message again. Her fingers trembled. "The money didn't arrive," she whispered. Richard stood up. "What do you mean?" "It says delayed," she replied. "Just delayed." Her voice was not convincing. Back in the hotel, Evelyn stood beside the crib and watched her son breathe. She touched his cheek gently. "Sleep," she whispered. "Mama is here." Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and smiled slightly. Outside, the city lights flickered. And somewhere else, panic had begun. Morning came quietly, but the city did not slow down. Cars moved below like ants. Horns sounded far away. Inside the hotel suite, the air felt calm and controlled, very different from the storm Evelyn had lived through the night before. She stood near the large window, holding a warm cup in her hands. Steam rose slowly. Her body still ached, but her mind was sharp now. There was no confusion left, only clarity. Her baby slept in a small crib nearby. His tiny chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. Every soft breath reminded her why she needed to be strong. She was not fighting for pride anymore. She was fighting for her child. A knock sounded at the door. The man from the night before stepped inside. He carried a folder and a tablet. His face was calm, but his eyes showed focus. "They did not sleep," he said. Evelyn did not turn. "I expected that." "What?" "They tried to reach every contact they have," he continued. "Banks, partners, lawyers." Evelyn took a slow sip from her cup, and, "No one is answering," he replied. She smiled faintly. She walked toward the table and sat down carefully. "Show me." He placed the tablet in front of her. Numbers filled the screen again, charts dipped downward, red signs appeared everywhere. "They built their world on borrowed money," he explained. "One delay causes panic." Evelyn scrolled through the data slowly. She understood every line, every risk, every weakness. "They thought I was nothing," she said quietly. "They never asked," he replied. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen but did not answer. The name flashing there meant nothing to her anymore. "Let it ring," she said. Across the city, inside a large office filled with glass and metal, Beatrice paced back and forth. Her heels struck the floor sharply, papers were spread across the desk, phones lay silent. "This cannot be happening," she snapped. Richard stood nearby, rubbing his temples. His tie was loose, his face looked tired. "They said the funds were secure," he said weakly. "They said many things," Beatrice replied, "and now we wait." I can go talk to them, Richard offered. No, Beatrice said sharply, you will make it worse. What? She stopped pacing and stared out the window. The city that once bowed to her now looked cold and distant. Back at the hotel, Evelyn changed into clean clothes. Simple, elegant, calm. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The fear was gone. The softness remained, but it was protected now. She walked back to the crib and watched her son wake up. His eyes blinked slowly. He made a small sound. Good morning, she whispered. She lifted him carefully and held him close. He smelled clean and new, her heart tightened with love. I will protect you, she promised softly. Later that morning, news spread quietly through private channels. Deals paused, meetings canceled, phones went unanswered. The name of one company appeared again and again in whispered conversations. Evelyn knew that name well. She sat with the tablet again, her finger hovered over the screen. Do it, she said. He nodded and tapped once. Far away, Beatrice's phone rang. She grabbed it instantly. Yes, she said sharply. Silence, then a voice, cold, professional, final. Her face drained of color. What do you mean on hold? She demanded. She listened, her grip tightened. This is unacceptable, she snapped. Do you know who I am? The call ended. She stared at the phone. Richard watched her. Mother. What? She did not answer. The walls felt closer now. At noon, Evelyn stepped outside for the first time since the hospital. She moved slowly, supported by calm hands beside her. The sun felt warm on her face. People passed by without noticing her. They did not know who she was. That was fine. Her phone buzzed again. This time she answered. Yes, she said. A voice spoke quickly on the other end. Panic was clear. Evelyn listened without emotion. I understand, she said finally. Send it in writing. She ended the call. They are begging already, she said. Too soon, he asked. No, she replied, just enough. That evening, Beatrice sat alone at her dining table. The food was untouched. Candles burned low. She stared at her phone, waiting for it to ring again. It did not. She slammed her hand on the table. This woman, she muttered. This nobody. She did not know yet, but she would soon. Back in the quiet hotel room, Evelyn placed her baby back into the crib. She sat beside him and rested her hand on the edge. The city lights turned on one by one outside. Her phone buzzed one last time. She read the message and closed her eyes slowly. Good, she whispered. The first door had closed, the next would not be as gentle. Evening settled over the city, calm on the surface but restless underneath. Lights glowed inside tall buildings. Cars moved in steady lines. Inside the Thornton family estate, however, calm was gone. Tension filled every corner of the large dining room. Beatrice sat at the head of the table. Her posture was straight, but her hands trembled slightly. Crystal glasses stood untouched. Plates of expensive food grew cold. She had ordered everything perfectly, just like always, but tonight control was slipping through her fingers. Richard sat to her right. He looked distracted. His phone rested beside his plate. He kept checking the screen even though nothing appeared. The woman sitting beside him laughed too loudly, trying to keep the mood light. Her smile looked forced. Relax, she said, lifting her glass. Everything will work out. Beatrice did not respond. She stared straight ahead. This delay will be fixed, Beatrice said finally. It is only temporary. Richard nodded, though his eyes showed doubt. The bank sounded nervous when I called. What? Nonsense, Beatrice snapped. They always panic. A phone buzzed. The sound cut through the room like a blade. Beatrice froze. Slowly, she reached for her phone. She adjusted her glasses and read the message. Her lips parted slightly. Color drained from her face. What is it? Richard asked. Beatrice read the message again as if hoping it would change. The transfer, she whispered. It has been stopped. The woman beside Richard frowned. Stopped. Yes, Beatrice said, completely. What? Richard pushed his chair back and stood. That is impossible. We need that money. Beatrice's hand shook as she placed the phone down. They say there are concerns. What kind of concerns? Richard demanded. She swallowed. Leadership concerns. What? Silence filled the room. Back at the hotel, Evelyn sat in a soft chair near the window. Her baby slept peacefully nearby. A quiet woman watched over him with gentle care. Evelyn held her tablet, scrolling through reports calmly. They are reacting exactly as expected, the man beside her said. Yes, Evelyn replied. Fear makes people sloppy. She paused on a screen and studied it carefully. They will look for quick money next. And they will find it, he said. Evelyn nodded at a terrible cost. She leaned back and closed her eyes briefly. Her body was still healing, but her mind was awake, fully awake. Back at the estate, Beatrice paced again. The woman beside Richard whispered something to him, her voice sharp now. This is embarrassing, she hissed. My father will hear about this. He already has, Richard replied quietly, her eyes widened. What? He called earlier, Richard said. He is angry. Beatrice stopped pacing, her heart pounded. We will fix this tonight. How? Richard asked. Beatrice turned sharply. I will secure a loan. At this hour, Richard said. Yes, she snapped. I still have contacts. What? She grabbed her phone and left the room without another word. Hours later, Beatrice sat inside a modern office with glass walls and harsh lighting. A man sat across from her, smiling too easily. Papers lay between them. This is the best offer, the man said. Time is not on your side. Beatrice scanned the numbers, her jaw tightened. This rate is outrageous, she said. It reflects risk, the man replied calmly. Beatrice hesitated. She had built her empire on confidence, not desperation, but desperation was all she had now. I will refinance soon, she said sharply. The man smiled wider. Of course. She signed, the pen felt heavy in her hand. Back at the hotel, Evelyn received an alert. She glanced at the screen and allowed herself a small smile. She signed, the man said beside her. Good, Evelyn replied. Now watch. Minutes later, Beatrice's phone buzzed again. She smiled in relief as she opened the app. Her smile vanished instantly, the balance showed red. What? She whispered. The money had arrived, then it was gone, her breath caught in her chest. This cannot be, she said aloud. She refreshed the screen. Nothing changed. She called the bank. The line stayed busy. Back at the estate, Richard paced the floor. The woman beside him was shouting now. This is a disaster, she cried. My father is pulling out. Richard ran a hand through his hair. Mother said she fixed it. At that moment, Beatrice stormed back into the house. Her face was pale, her eyes were wide. They took it, she whispered. They who? Richard asked. Beatrice sank into a chair. The debt, someone bought our debt. What? Richard stared at her. Who? She swallowed hard. Sterling. The name hung in the air. Back at the hotel, Evelyn stood beside the crib again. She watched her baby sleep peaceful and safe. The tablet chimed softly. It is done, the man said. Evelyn nodded slowly. This is only the beginning, she replied. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside the Thornton estate, fear had finally replaced pride, and Beatrice had no idea who was truly behind it all, not yet. 3 days passed, but for Beatrice, each hour felt like a year. Phones kept ringing, but none of the calls brought good news. Her name, once respected, now caused silence on the other end of the line. Banks delayed meetings. Old friends avoided her. The house that once felt powerful now felt empty and cold. Beatrice sat in her study late at night. Papers were spread across the desk. Numbers no longer made sense. The world she controlled with ease was slipping away fast. She clenched her jaw and stared at the wall. This is not over, she muttered. Richard stood at the doorway. He looked thinner. His eyes were tired. The engagement party is still on, he said quietly. Beatrice turned sharply. Of course it is. People are talking, Richard added. Let them, she snapped. Appearances matter. Across the city, Evelyn sat calmly in her new home. The space was bright and quiet. Sunlight moved across the floor slowly. Her baby lay on a soft blanket nearby, moving his tiny hands. Evelyn watched him and smiled gently. A knock came at the door. They are desperate, the man beside her said. I know, Evelyn replied. She picked up her phone and read the message. They are holding a party, she said. Interesting timing, he replied. Yes, she said, and useful. What? The night of the party arrived. The hotel ballroom sparkled with light and sound. Music played softly. Guests filled the room, dressed in expensive clothes and forced smiles. Morning arrived with heavy clouds hanging low over the city. Rain tapped against tall windows and gray streets reflected the sky above. Outside the family court building, reporters gathered early. Cameras waited. Whispers filled the air. Something important was about to happen. Inside, the courtroom felt cold and tense. Wooden benches creaked softly as people took their seats. Papers rustled. The judge's chair stood empty for now, but the pressure in the room was already thick. Evelyn sat quietly at one table. She wore a dark blue suit. Simple, clean. Her hair was neatly pulled back. Her face showed calm, but her hands rested protectively around her bag. Her baby was safe elsewhere, guarded and watched carefully. Beside her sat her legal counsel. Calm, prepared, focused. Across the room, Richard sat stiffly. His shoulders were hunched. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Beatrice sat behind him. Her face looked sharp and tight. Her eyes burned with anger. She did not look at Evelyn. The door opened. All rise, the clerk announced. The judge entered and took her seat. Her eyes scanned the room with quiet authority. She adjusted her glasses and opened the file in front of her. We are here regarding an emergency custody request, the judge said. Let us proceed. Beatrice's lawyer stood first. His voice was loud and confident. Your Honor, he began, the mother is unstable. She left the hospital without approval. She has no fixed home. She misrepresented her identity. We believe the child is at risk. What? Beatrice nodded firmly as he spoke. Evelyn did not move. The lawyer continued, pacing slightly. My clients offer a stable family home, generational wealth, structure, safety. He finished with a sharp nod. The judge turned toward Evelyn's side. Response. Evelyn's lawyer stood calmly. Your Honor, every claim made is false. She placed documents on the desk. The mother was forced out of the hospital. There are security records, written orders. Beatrice shifted in her seat. And regarding housing, the lawyer continued, my client owns her residence outright. Beatrice laughed sharply, impossible. The judge raised a hand, silence. The lawyer handed over more papers. Here is the deed. The judge scanned the page, then another, her eyes paused, she flipped again, the room was silent. Ms. Sterling, the judge said slowly, your financial disclosure is extensive. Yes, Your Honor, Evelyn replied calmly. Is this accurate? Yes. The judge leaned back slightly. Across the room, Richard's face went pale. Beatrice leaned forward. She is lying. The judge's voice hardened. These records are verified. Beatrice froze. The judge continued, this court does not look kindly on deception. She turned toward Richard. Mr. Thornton, did you approve divorce documents in the hospital? Richard swallowed, yes. What? Did they offer the mother a financial settlement to leave? Richard hesitated, then nodded, yes. Beatrice whispered harshly, stop talking. The judge's gaze sharpened, how much? 10,000, Richard said quietly. A murmur spread through the room. The judge removed her glasses. You attempted to remove a newborn from his mother for $10,000. Richard lowered his head. Evelyn stood slowly. Your Honor, they believed I was poor. That is why they acted this way. The judge looked at her carefully. I only want my child safe, Evelyn continued, nothing more. The judge nodded once. This motion is denied, she said firmly. Beatrice jumped to her feet. You cannot. Sit down, the judge snapped. She continued, temporary sole custody is granted to the mother. The father may request supervised visits only. Beatrice's face twisted in rage. And the grandmother, the judge added, is not to have contact with the child until further review. Beatrice screamed, this is a conspiracy. The judge slammed the gavel, remove her. Officers stepped forward. Beatrice resisted, shouting and shaking. Her perfect appearance shattered as she was escorted out. You will regret this, she screamed toward Evelyn. The door slammed shut. The room fell silent again. Richard sat frozen. His lawyer packed his bag without a word. Evelyn gathered her things slowly. She walked past Richard. Eve, he whispered, I didn't know. That is the problem, she replied softly. You never tried. She walked out without looking back. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Evelyn stepped into the waiting car without stopping. Inside, she finally exhaled. Her hands shook slightly now. The strength she held cracked just a bit. They are dangerous, the man beside her said quietly. Yes, Evelyn replied. Especially now. Her phone buzzed. She read the message. Her face changed. What is it? He asked. She took out insurance, Evelyn said slowly, on my child. The car went silent. That changes everything, he said. Evelyn looked out the window. Rain streaked down the glass. Protect him, she said firmly, no matter what. The war was no longer about money or pride. It was about survival. The rain did not stop that night. It washed over the city like a warning. Streets shined under passing lights. Inside Evelyn's penthouse, silence ruled. Thick walls blocked the noise from outside, but they could not block fear. Fear had already found its way in. Evelyn stood near the window, holding her phone tightly. Her face was calm, but her heart beat fast. The message she had just read replayed again and again in her mind. Insurance. Her child, money tied to his life. The thought made her stomach turn. He would never be safe, she said quietly. The man beside her nodded. Not while she is free. Security moved quietly through the home, doors locked, cameras checked. Guards took positions without sound. The nursery door stayed closed, guarded from both sides. Evelyn walked in and stood beside the crib. Her baby slept peacefully. His tiny face looked soft and innocent. She reached out and touched his hand gently. He curled his fingers around hers without waking. I will not let anyone hurt you, she whispered. Hours passed slowly. Midnight came and went. Outside, thunder rolled low in the distance. Then the intercom buzzed. Evelyn stiffened. The man beside her answered it quickly. His face changed instantly. It's Richard, he said. The elevator doors opened moments later. Richard stumbled out. His shirt was wrinkled. Blood stained his sleeve. His face was pale and desperate. She's lost it, he gasped. She owes dangerous people. She thinks the child is her way out. Evelyn's chest tightened. Where is she? She's coming, Richard said. I tried to stop her. The lights flickered, then they went out. Emergency lights glowed dimly. The service elevator doors slammed open. Beatrice stepped out. Her hair was messy. Her clothes were rumpled. Her eyes looked wild. Two men stood behind her, tense and alert. This ends tonight, Beatrice said sharply. Richard stepped in front of Evelyn. Stop, please. Beatrice laughed. You never had control. She raised her arm. Something dark and heavy rested in her hand. Evelyn did not move. She stood tall, calm. Focused, you are finished, Evelyn said. I am not leaving poor, Beatrice screamed. I built everything. This is not your legacy, Evelyn replied. This is your greed. One of the guards moved. One of the men behind Beatrice reacted. Chaos exploded in seconds, shouts, movement, the sound of bodies colliding. Richard turned back just as Beatrice's hand shook. A loud crack filled the room. Richard fell, everything froze. Evelyn screamed his name. She dropped to her knees beside him. Blood spread quickly, his breathing was shallow, his eyes struggled to stay open. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Beatrice dropped the object from her hand. She stared at her son in horror, her anger drained away, replaced by shock. "I didn't mean," she whispered. Security rushed forward. Officers stormed in moments later. Beatrice was pulled away, screaming and crying. Her voice echoed until it faded down the hall. Evelyn stayed beside Richard until medics arrived. She held his hand while they worked. Her face was wet with tears she did not realize were falling. "He saved him," one medic said quietly. The doors closed behind them. Silence returned. Weeks passed. Richard survived. He did not return home. He left the city quietly. Beatrice did not leave with him. Her story ended behind locked doors and cold walls. 6 months later, sunlight filled the terrace of the old estate. The place felt different now. Clean, open, peaceful. Evelyn sat in a chair, watching her son laugh as he tried to walk. His joy filled the space. Her heart felt lighter. A letter rested on the table. She had already read it twice. Richard wrote about working far away. About learning responsibility, about regret. She folded the letter carefully. "Maybe someday," she whispered. She picked up her son and held him close. He laughed and reached for the sky. Evelyn smiled. The past was behind her. The future was finally hers to shape. The days after the incident moved slowly, as if time itself needed rest. News spread through quiet channels. No headlines screamed the truth. No cameras showed the pain inside the penthouse that night. What happened stayed mostly hidden, wrapped in legal language and sealed reports. But inside Evelyn, the memories stayed sharp. She returned to her home with new routines and stronger walls. Security was always present now, but it moved softly, never loud. The halls felt safe again, but not empty. Life had returned, just differently shaped. Every morning, Evelyn woke before sunrise. She watched light crawl across the city from her window. She listened to the soft sounds of her son waking nearby. His small noises pulled her gently out of her thoughts. She would walk to his room and lift him into her arms. He always smiled when he saw her. That smile healed parts of her she did not know were broken. She carried him through the house as sunlight filled the rooms. She spoke to him softly. She told him about the sky, the city, and the world he would grow into. He did not understand the words, but he understood the love. Downstairs, business waited. Messages came in waves. Decisions needed approval. Markets shifted. People watched closely. Some expected Evelyn to slow down after everything. They were wrong. She did not rush. She did not panic. She worked with calm focus. At a long table filled with screens and documents, she reviewed reports carefully. Each choice was thoughtful. Each move was quiet but firm. Her company stabilized, then grew. Investors regained confidence. Employees felt relief. They saw strength, not revenge. Across the city, Richard recovered slowly. His body healed faster than his mind. He left the hospital quietly. He did not ask to see Evelyn. He did not ask about the child. He knew the distance was earned. He traveled far from the city. He found work that required effort and patience. His hands grew rough. His thoughts grew clearer. At night, he wrote letters he never sent. Beatrice's name disappeared from polite conversation. Her story became a warning spoken in low voices. Her power vanished. Her influence ended. The world moved on without her. Evelyn did not celebrate that fall. She felt no joy from it, only relief. One afternoon, she stood in a quiet room filled with soft light. Papers lay neatly on the desk. A framed photo sat near the window. It showed her holding her son for the first time. Her face looked tired but peaceful. She touched the frame gently. "You are safe," she whispered. That evening, she hosted a small dinner. No cameras, no speeches, only a few trusted people. The mood was calm, warm, honest. Laughter returned to her home, soft and real. Someone asked her how she endured everything. Evelyn paused before answering. "I focused on what mattered," she said simply. Later, alone again, she stood on the balcony. The city stretched endlessly below. Lights blinked like stars. She breathed in the cool air and felt grounded. Her phone buzzed. A message waited. She opened it slowly. It was short, respectful, careful. Richard wrote that he was alive, that he was learning, that he did not expect forgiveness. That he only wanted her to know he would never forget what she did for their child. Evelyn read it twice. Then she closed her eyes. She did not reply, not yet. Weeks passed. Seasons shifted. Her son grew stronger. His laughter filled the halls more often. He learned to stand, then to step. Each small victory felt huge. Evelyn watched closely, ready to catch him if he fell, but he rarely did. He was steady, curious, brave. She saw pieces of herself in him, strength, quiet focus. One morning, a report landed on her desk. Final, clear, all legal matters were resolved, custody confirmed, protection assured. There were no more shadows following her family. She leaned back in her chair and allowed herself a deep breath. It was over. That night she held her son and watched the city sleep. The past felt distant now, painful but no longer sharp. She had survived. More than that, she had grown. She kissed her son's forehead. "We are free," she whispered. Outside, the city lights glowed steadily. And for the first time in a long while, Evelyn felt truly at peace. The letter arrived on a quiet morning. It was thick and formal. The paper felt heavy in Evelyn's hands. The return address carried a name she had not thought about in a long time. Her heart slowed as she read it. A will reading, mandatory attendance, specific instructions. She sat at the kitchen table while her son played nearby. He stacked blocks with serious focus. One fell and he laughed. The sound softened her chest. She folded the letter carefully and placed it beside her cup. She had moved on. She had rebuilt, yet the past had a way of knocking when it wanted to be heard. The day of the reading arrived with clear skies. The building stood tall and quiet. Old stone, polished floors. The kind of place that smelled like money and secrets. Evelyn entered without hurry. She wore a simple coat, her hair was tied back. She carried no fear with her. Inside, familiar faces waited. Some whispered when they saw her, others looked away. A few stared openly, curious and unsure. She recognized the looks. They thought they knew her story. They were wrong. She took a seat near the back. She did not need attention. Richard was there. He looked healthier, thinner, more grounded. He noticed her and nodded once. She nodded back. Nothing more passed between them. The lawyer entered and closed the door. His voice was steady. He explained the process. Names would be called, shares would be listed. There would be no discussion until the end. Evelyn listened quietly. Her hands rested in her lap. Her thoughts stayed calm. Names were read. Items assigned, money divided, properties transferred. Some faces lit up, others tightened. Greed showed quickly in small movements. Then the lawyer paused. "Evelyn Sterling," he said. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Heads turned. She stood slowly. Her heart remained steady. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "According to the will, Ms. Sterling is named primary beneficiary of the remaining estate." A sharp breath cut through the room. The lawyer continued. "This includes controlling shares, private holdings, and trust authority." Silence followed, heavy, complete. Someone whispered, "That's impossible." The lawyer did not look up. "The instructions are clear." Evelyn remained standing. Her face showed no shock, no pride, only understanding. The lawyer cleared his throat. The testator stated that Ms. Sterling was the only individual who showed loyalty without expectation. Murmurs grew louder. A woman stood abruptly. She was ignored for years. The lawyer nodded. That was noted. Richard looked at Evelyn, stunned. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Evelyn sat down slowly. Her hands did not shake. The lawyer finished the reading. The room buzzed with confusion and disbelief. People stood in clusters, whispering urgently. Some glared at Evelyn. Others avoided her entirely. She rose and walked toward the exit. She did not rush. She did not explain. She owed no one anything. Outside, the air felt fresh, clean. She breathed deeply. Her phone vibrated. A message waited. It was from the lawyer, one line only. "There is one final condition. Please return inside." Evelyn paused. She looked up at the sky, then turned back toward the door. Inside, the room quieted again as she entered. The lawyer stood waiting. "There is an addendum," he said. "It requires your signature to activate." He slid a document across the table. Evelyn read it carefully. Her expression changed slightly. She looked up. "You are sure?" The lawyer nodded. It was explicit. She picked up the pen. The room held its breath. Evelyn signed. A quiet gasp rippled through the crowd. The lawyer collected the paper. "The estate is now finalized." Evelyn stepped back. Her heart beat a little faster now, not from fear, from clarity. Richard approached her cautiously. "I didn't know," he said. "I know," she replied gently. He swallowed. Evelyn did not rush home after the call. She walked instead. The city moved around her, loud and careless. Cars passed. People laughed. Life continued. The voice on the phone had been calm but firm. The estate transfer was complete. But one asset had been activated late. A hidden account, one that changed everything. She stopped near a small park and sat on a bench. Children played nearby. Her son would like this place. She smiled faintly. For years she had been invisible, ignored, dismissed. She had been spoken over and walked past. People assumed weakness because she stayed quiet. They were wrong. She returned home before sunset. Her son ran to her with open arms. She lifted him easily. His laughter filled the room. That night she slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The next morning the lawyer arrived in person. He carried 2 folders, one thin, one thick. He sat across from her at the dining table. She offered him tea. He declined. The final share was not money, he said. It was control. He opened the thick folder. Inside were documents, stamps, and signatures. Board authority. Voting rights, full oversight. Evelyn listened without speaking. The company believed the shares were divided, he continued. But the will delayed the release. She leaned forward slightly. "You are now the deciding voice," he said. The words settled slowly, not heavy, not exciting, just clear. And the others, she asked. They assumed you had nothing, he replied. They will find out today. The announcement went public at noon. Emails flew, phones rang. Meetings were cancelled. By evening, everyone knew her name. Some called to congratulate her, others called to complain. A few demanded meetings. She scheduled none of them. That night she sat alone on the balcony. The city lights blinked like distant stars. She held a cup of tea. Her thoughts were steady. Power felt strange, quiet, not loud like people imagined. The next day she entered the building she now controlled. No one stopped her. Security nodded. Reception smiled nervously. She walked into the boardroom. Chairs filled slowly. Whispers stopped when she sat down. She placed her hands flat on the table. I will keep this simple, she said. My role begins today. What? No one interrupted. This company will change, she continued, not loudly, not quickly, but correctly. Faces shifted. Some looked relieved, others looked afraid. She named priorities, clear rules, fair contracts, no threats. No hidden deals. When the meeting ended, no one argued. Outside, reporters waited. Questions flew. She answered only one. Why now? Someone asked. She paused. Because silence ends when it has to, she said. At home, she found a letter waiting. Handwritten, short, it was from Richard. He thanked her. He apologized without excuses. He wished her peace. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Weeks passed. Changes spread. The company stabilized. Workers stayed. Trust grew slowly. One afternoon, she attended a small school event with her son. She sat on a low chair among other parents. No one recognized her. She liked it that way. Her son waved at her from the stage. She waved back. Later, as she drove home, her phone rang again. Another call, another update. The final account had matured. Its value was beyond expectation. She closed her eyes briefly. At home that evening, she opened the old drawer. Inside were papers from years ago, old insults, old threats, old lies. She took them out one by one, then she threw them away. The past had no hold on her anymore. She stood by the window and watched her son sleep. His chest rose and fell gently. She had not won through